Okay, I think we'll kick things off, and hopefully we'll get a few more people drop in as we go along. So, hi everyone, thank you for joining us for April's edition of Tech Wednesday. It's crazy that we're still here. I say it every single time that hopefully we're getting closer and closer to that back in physical presence of events. I'm sure many of you have been taking up the opportunity over the last week to meet with friends in an outdoor setting. So we're getting there, and hopefully we'll be all together very soon. So I'm joined this evening by Vivien and Chris, and I will shortly read a quick bio about them. But just a quick overview of Tech Wednesday. So if you've not joined us before, thank you so much for joining us. We meet on the third Wednesday of every month. And usually, as I say, we're in person, we have beers and pizza, and it's a really nice event. Obviously, at the moment, we're virtually connected, but it's a really nice way to be able to open up Tech Wednesday to a wider community rather than just the Midlands, which is where we are based. Throughout the evening, please do use the hashtag on your screen, which is hashtag TechWeds. Throughout the evening, we'd like to get the conversation going online. And also, if you've got any kind of feedback or would like to shout about the stuff that the guys are saying, please do include that whilst we're going along through the event. So, as I said, I'm joined this evening by Chris, who is a cybersecurity extraordinaire. He has over 20 years in the industry and has managed security teams at the European Space Agency, HP and Fujitsu. He's now the founder and director of CyberQ Group, and he's here this evening to talk to us a little bit about the dark web, threat actors, and also the work that CyberQ are doing right now. I'm also joined by Vivien. So Vivien is a former academic researcher, but is now the CEO and founder of DRIAD, which is an innovation consultancy. So since 2014, they've helped over hundreds of startups raise access funding, and he's going to talk to us tonight about grant funding, about what is a grant, how they work, and whether it's actually worth your time. So that's how the evening's going to run. I was just saying to Chris that I know he's a bit of a talker, so we're going to hopefully get a Q&A with Chris after his talk. But if he does run over, then we're going to go straight to Vivien, and we'll do a big Q&A at the end altogether. So please do get those questions into the chat, into the Q&A tab, so that we've got those prepared for when we come up to the Q&A section. And then I've just got a couple of things to touch on at the end, stuff that's going on in the next couple of weeks, which you can access. And then we shall hopefully close around 6:30. So I'm going to pass straight over to Chris, get going whilst we can, and over to you, Chris.
Stephanie, thank you very much. That's a hell of an introduction, that is, Stephanie. Where do I start? Yeah, I'll keep this brief and obviously very, very high level. Thank you for the invite, firstly, Stephanie, to Tech Wednesday. I've never been involved before, so I'm looking to participate here, more so. So again, thank you for the invitation and very much appreciated. Just a little background before I jump into the presentation, which I promise, Stephanie, I will do very quickly. So again, just kind of my background is 25 years in cybersecurity, mostly outside the UK. So working in the Middle East, working in the US, and working in Italy, actually, a place called Frascati, beautiful place. And the reason I'm here today is just really to give you a quick overview of the dark web and the type of different threat actors, which, Stephanie, if we go on to the next slide, I'll go through the agenda. So the first kind of the agenda of what I want to walk people through is a little bit about cybersecurity stats, because I think that's a good place to start. It's good that people understand what the threats are, what some of the stats are happening in the industry. The second one is threat actors, and different threat actors have different motivations. The third one is obviously what is the dark web, and fourthly, the dark web for good uses. So most people think the dark web is actually used for bad stuff, and absolutely it is, but there is obviously some good use, for using the dark web and why people do use it. So if we go on to the kind of first slide, Stephanie, I'm keeping her on the time. I think the stat that I would pick out here is the average time to identify the breach. Now, these stats are a couple of years old now, but again, it hasn't decreased, it's actually increased. And the stat is the one in the middle. You know, the average time to identify a breach in 2019 was 206 days. Now, the best way to think about that is almost like physical security. So imagine that someone tried to break into your house, and imagine they were in your house for 206 days and you didn't know that. Now, that is the cyber landscape, and it has increased, you know, over the years, that literally people identifying threat actors within their network and not being able to realise it, 206 days. And just imagine if that was a burglar in your house and he stopped in your house for 206 days. That's that even now, still mind-blowing. But you kind of get the understanding about how big this problem is in cybersecurity. And it's not stealing data, it's not encrypting data with ransomware. It's ultimately reputation damage as well. So again, there's some stats. I'm not really here to talk about the different stats. You can Google to get some, you know, some of the latest stats, but that hopefully provides a bit of an overview. If we then move on to the next slide then, Stephanie, and if we get them, if you don't mind just putting them all out, I'll go through each one. Now, when you break into a system, you have got a motivation, you have got certain tools. Now, at a very high level, you can break this down further, but at a very high level, this gives you an idea of the type of threat actors, what their motivation are, and ultimately what their tools are. Now, the first one is Hacktivism. Now, Hacktivism, their motivation is they've got a point to prove. So let's say you have Hacktivism around the environment. You know, they want to target the oil companies, they want to target people that are cutting down trees, they want to target organizations of that ilk. And what they want to do is they don't really want to steal data. What they want to do is embarrass the organization. So it's a case of going after their social media, going after their website, and making sure their message gets out there. Now, Hacktivism, again, comes in many forms. But with that threat actor, you know they're after social media, you know they're after the website, and you know they're after to get a message out. Now, that's very different to cyber criminals. Cyber criminals don't want to put a message out there. They don't want to put a point across. They actually want to steal money, or they want to steal data, because data can be traded. And cyber criminals, I haven't got the latest stats, but I think it's probably not too far off 500 billion pounds that can be created through cyber criminals. Now, this can be stealing intellectual property, this can be stealing data, this can be stealing information that can be sold to competitors. Cyber criminals can operate in different ways, but the motivation is absolutely, sorry, I was just having a look at the text there. His motivation is all about the money, it's all about getting the data and then selling the data. And we'll touch upon that when we get into the dark web slides about how cyber criminals work. The other threat actor is the insider threat. So the insider threat is an individual that works for your organization that, again, maybe because they didn't get a promotion, maybe because they're not very happy in the organization, maybe that they're just trying to go on holiday and have access to data that they can sell. And the example I can give you on this is we worked with an organisation, actually. It wasn't a very big organisation. It was about a £20 million turnover business, so not huge. And they had a few sales guys that had access to sales data. Now, one particular individual gave that spreadsheet to someone he used to play five-a-side football with, or someone he played five-a-side football, because the individual could sell that data for him. Now, it just so happened in this particular case that we did something that we call a dark web or continuous breach detection for the organisation, and we found this spreadsheet for sale on the dark web for some bitcoins. Now, what was really interesting about that is I'd like to say that CyberQ Group, we have some phenomenal professionals, that we did something clever. We didn't. We had access to the spreadsheet, which had this individual's name on. And we could then trace it back, obviously, to the company. And luckily for this company, we were employed to protect them. And when he was confronted, so when this sales individual was confronted about selling the data, he actually said it wasn't him. He was just trying to pass it on to his friend, who then in turn gave him some money that he could take his kids to Florida. Now, there's always a backstory, but again, the insider threats now, and we've seen pretty much an increase in that over the last kind of 24 months because we run a security operations centre where, people may not be happy at work, people may be working from home, they've got access to data and that data can be sold. So again, that hopefully gives you an idea of insider threat. And the final one that I'm not going to talk about, I did do some work for our friends at GCHQ, but it's nation states, and I don't think anyone should be particularly surprised that governments hack each other. I used to travel to the US a lot, to our US office, and there used to be a phrase of Edward Snowden, if people know who Edward Snowden is, if he was a traitor or a patriot. Because depending on your view of Edward Snowden, he was either trying to help the masses or he betrayed his UK government. Because I think if you ever get the chance to read some of Edward Snowden's book, he dictates and articulates a very well thought out process of what the UK government was doing to try and get a competitive advantage over other countries. There's a couple I will mention. Obviously, what the US did in Europe, which is obviously open source intelligence now. Snooping on friends in effect, and the way the US did that. I'd also talk about people may be familiar with Stuxnet, or probably won't be. There was an actual recent one actually, but Stuxnet was a malware that was created, well, I should say supposedly created by friendly governments, which basically affected the uranium and the nuclear facility in Iran. And again, from our perspective, that was back in 2008 where they, supposedly did that. But that gives you an idea that nation states obviously hack other governments as well. But again, at a very, very high level, that's the way you can break down these threat actors, and also just understanding about their motivation and the tools. Thanks, Stephanie, for kicking me on. And if I am talking too much, please hurry on. So again, just to give you an overview, so now jumping into the dark web, there's three really high level environments that you can use to really explain what the dark web, the deep web, and the surface web. Some people get confused between the dark web and the deep web. Most people understand the surface web. So the surface web we use every day. We go to Google. We do, type things into search engine, we get results back. Most people understand that, BBC News, etc. The deep web isn't the dark web. The deep web is, the best way to think about it is stuff that can't be indexed by a search engine. And a lot of people use that today. If you use Google Apps, if you use Microsoft, they'll share records with each other, they'll share data with each other, but you have to have the link to access it. And that data won't be widely available on the internet, or won't be indexable. So you have to have the link to access this at the deep web. And then obviously the dark web is you need a particular browser, you need the Tor browser or all the browsers, the data is encrypted, and that's where you can access the different marketplaces on the dark web. So hopefully that kind of explains the surface web, deep web, and the dark web. Now, what can you do on the dark web? Now, the best way to describe the dark web is it's capitalism personified. Going back to the threat actors on cyber criminals, it's about making money. Now, ultimately, you're probably aware on the dark web is no different to Amazon. So there's a couple there that I'll talk about. So buying drugs on the dark web, Silk Road was the first one, but people don't understand that the marketplace is very similar to Amazon. So let's imagine that you buy drugs. I'm sure nobody on this webinar buys drugs, but let's use that as an example. If you're buying drugs, the chances are other people that like drugs, because your social circle is probably social circle that does drugs. And ultimately, you want to make sure that you're getting the best quality, and you want to make sure that you're dealing with the appropriate company that gives you the best quality. Now, the marketplace is set up to make sure that it serves that market, and it wants you as a repeat customer. And what it does is it wants your reviews. It wants you to give it 5-star reviews. And they also have Manic Monday, or let's call it Drug Monday, where they'll probably give you some, not coupons, but some discounts for buying drugs on that day. That's what I mean, that it's capitalism personified, that it's about attracting customers and getting you to buy stuff. And it's not buy stuff once or twice. It's actually getting you to buy it all the time. The way you look at marketplaces on the dark web, you should look at Amazon in the same way, because it's the same theory. It's the same, making sure they look after the customer, and it's making sure that the customer's at the center of what they do. So that's the drug one. That's the obvious one, and that's probably the big one. If you go to the next slide, please, Stephanie. These are some other services that you can buy. Now, drugs are obviously the big one, but guns, counterfeit money, Zoom passwords, if I'm honest, anything you can imagine, and it can be downloaded or you can get images, you can pretty much buy it from the dark web. There is some horrendous marketplaces on there, that just want to sell stuff to get paid. But one I want to draw attention to, because I think this for us quite recently has been probably the biggest play, is around hiring hackers. And as you can see on the furthest one, where you can hire individuals to screw people's lives. And I literally mean that. We're looking at individuals that may be going through a messy divorce. You're looking at organisation, people that don't like their employer anymore, and even as much as to putting images on laptops or hacking Facebook accounts or doing revenge porn, and having access to these people. And again, the hacker on the far right, you can do some horrible things. And again, I just want to kind of put it out there, and I don't want to scare anyone either on there as well. As I'm talking, I'm thinking I'm probably scaring everyone. But these are the type of services and the type of stuff that you can buy on the dark web. Now, again, we've seen a rise in this. We've seen obviously a rise on people hiring people to do not very nice things. That's probably the best way to leave it. And again, it's about money. It's about a marketplace. And I just want to go back to that capitalism personified, because they want to get a few bitcoins, they want to get money, because they want to get paid. And again, just want to talk about some of the marketplaces on the dark web. So if we go to the one after that, just keeping an eye on the time. So this is something that we've seen around the COVID-19 scams as well. So again, linking it back to the dark web, linking it back to the marketplaces, some of the stuff that we've seen some of our criminals doing is basically targeting UK customers really, and our US customers, we saw it on our US clients as well, and getting them to pay some money. So, these are some of the scams. The one that kind of comes to my mind straight away is for the jab and the injection. You've been selected to have the vaccine. As part of that vaccine, you now need to pay £5 to confirm your space. Please allow your detail. That's been a popular one that's actually worked because it's believable. The text message comes from the NHS. And again, it's you put your credit card details and you get it. And we're seeing a lot of that. And even now, at the beginning, we saw a lot of the kind of text messages and again, some of the emails about it. But it's really, really believable. And even selling the vaccine. So again, going back to the dark web, there is places that you can buy this vaccine on the marketplace. And again, they say it's real and all the rest of it. But again, it just shows you the kind of view of what people can do. And again, just to make sure everyone's aware, especially who are attending this webinar, just to be on the lookout for these type of scans that we're seeing to do with COVID-19. If we then go on to the next one, I think this is the last one really. So to wrap it all up, I've talked about the overview of cybersecurity stats. So again, I've just showed you some stats around cybersecurity, especially the breach detection, about how long it takes organisations to know they've been breached. We then talked about threat actors, again, a very high level overview of different threat actors and their motivations, why they do what they do. Then we talked about what is the dark web, what is the deep web, what is the open source, what is the surface web. And then we've gone to the marketplace, just to show you some of the stuff that you can purchase and some of the stuff that you can buy on the marketplace, and how the marketplace really is that capitalism personified, why it is really like an Amazon, where it's about attracting customers and keeping customers. But I also want to talk about the good use of dark web, because I don't want anyone going away and saying, oh, dark web's a bad place and I'm never going to download it again. It's very simple to access as well. If you just Google it, you'd probably do it in 30 seconds. So you don't need a computer science degree or anything to get access. But there is some good use for dark web. And, there is some popular sites on the dark web. And, it gives people the ability to protest, to put things out there without being particularly political. There's, countries at the moment that are going through certain problems and they can't post on the surface web, or they can't make their feelings known. And what the dark web does is allow these individuals to speak out, to share images, to get access to news. And again, the dark web has been used to do that as well. So as well as all the negative stuff, I want you to leave away that says the dark web does have good uses and does give people a voice that necessarily, if the dark web wasn't there and they didn't have the encryption and the tool to get access to it and to be anonymized while posting their comments, that potentially could be a bad thing as well. So I think for that, Stephanie, if we go to I think that's my last slide. So I've done that in about 15, 20 minutes, I think, Stephanie. So hopefully that's not too long at all. Hopefully I've made my very high level.
Yeah, well done. Pat on the back. Gold star, everything for you, Chris.
Thank you. Checks in the post, Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone loves a happy ending, so I'm so glad that that last slide was in there. I've seen that Nasra has raised her hand, so I'm just going to check. Well, I probably need to come out of share screen, and I'm going to, if Nasra's happy to, ask her question direct. Let me.
Hello. Yeah, can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Nasra, I can hear you fine.
That's really good. So, Chris, I really found the presentation so interesting and it's intriguing, amazing. I mean, I didn't even know some of the figures. I found it so incredible. But I just wanted to ask you about what about utilizing databases like a CRM system? Do they not block and do they not keep the client information safe?
It depends, Nasra. So at the end of the day, to be very honest with you, cyber security is no difference to physical security. The problem we have in my industry, and I can say this after 25 years of being a veteran, is that we use language that just confuses people, and I genuinely don't know why we do that. Nasra, we could have a great conversation about physical security. We could talk about walls, we could talk about barbed wires, we could talk about dogs, we could talk about 7'2" people guarding the door, and we could have quite a coherent discussion about the benefits and how strong that physical security. Cyber's exactly the same. The problem is we start bringing in things like malware, firewalls, next gen this, MDR, XDR, and it just scares people. There's no difference between a malware and a big dog or a barbed wire and a firewall. It's the same thing. So going back to your CRM system, which in essence is a database, the essence there is how well protected is it? Does it use two-factor authentication? Has it had a penetration test? Is it on a hardened build? If an insider threat did go rogue, how would you spot that? Is the database secure? So there's various questions that one needs to ask to find about how secure that database is. One thing I would say, and we're a successful cybersecurity company with offices across the globe, is that even if you employ our services, there's no silver bullet. It's about risk reduction. If you've got a barbed wire, if you've got a big wall, if you've got bouncers at the door, if you've got a big dog, it obviously reduces your risk of exposure or someone breaking into your house, but it's never going to guarantee that no one's going to break into your house. Cybersecurity is the same way. Does that make sense, Nasra?
Okay, I think it makes perfectly sense. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Nasra. I think Taryn's asked a question and it kind of follows on for that. So Taryn's question is, what can small companies do to make themselves more secure?
Great question. Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things they can do right off the bat. Two-factor authentication or multi-factor, or say whatever you want to call it, is a really good way. Passwords and username are just, to be blunt, are just rubbish. If your password gets out, I think I saw a study the other day that most passwords were, pet names or something. You need two-factor authentication. So I think a simple step that small, medium, or small businesses can do is use two-factor. I think that they get a lot from that. And if they're using cloud services, it's kind of part of that. The second part of it is just to try and understand that risk to their business. So, the reason we exist is to protect data and protect reputation. That's the reason CyberQ Group exists. Why we do it, how we do it is less important. And I think small businesses need to look at that should they, where's the risk in their business? You know, is it an insider threat stealing their database and selling it? Is it their website getting compromised? Is it their customers getting compromised? Because the supply chain is a big one at the moment, where what we're seeing with some cyber criminals is that they've come into the business and they target your supply chain because they know you'll get embarrassed and there's more chance that you're going to pay the ransom or you're going to pay the bill to stop that. But again, just to wrap that up, I think two-factor authentication, have a look at the risks within your business and then look at a risk mitigation strategy to help that business as well. And again, any further advice, I don't know, Stephanie, if you're going to share my email address, or probably not hard to get hold of me, then happy to provide more input after if there's any specific questions.
I was just thinking, actually, if you could pop that email address in the chat box after this Q&A.
No problem.
Because I think it kind of depends on the different, you know, the different services that people provide as well, doesn't it? So I know Taran is in VR, so whether his would be different to somebody who's, you know, like Nazareth, who's got a CRM system, or, you know, the advice might be a bit different. So I'm going to come to Azad, who is also raised his hand. So Azad, I've unmuted you if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, that's thanks, Chris, for that. That was really helpful and really, you know, out there.
Well, thank you. Checks in the post, Azad. Just give your address to Stephanie. We'll make sure we get. No, thank you. It's great. All my friends have come to my webinar.
Good man. As long as I get the 10% at the top, I'll do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I, from my sins many years ago, I used to be head of security in some of these companies like Orange and Vodafone, and I worked
on a job.
And I worked very well. I worked very closely with GCHQ and worked up on that. So one of the things that I was just going to ask is, how much does, and I've seen this a lot flying around, how much does AI and machine learning reduce that threat time?
Great question. You know, and if I answer the question, send us your CV after. How's that? I think that's a great question. To be fair, I think it's perfect. And this is my response to that, actually. And again, it may, you know, it's my 25 years in the industry, and again, I'm not being arrogant here, but working at some big companies, I think that's all just marketing ploy. The artificial intelligence that I've seen and the machine learning, and I'll give you the example, I'll justify that because that's a massive statement I've just made, and I'm sure if it was on BBC News, I'd be challenged. But if you look at the amount of attacks that we've had for the last 10 years, they've increased year on year on year on year. So we're going to have more attacks in 2021 than we had in 2020. We're going to have more attacks in 2022 than we had in 2021. And guess what? We've got more machine learning, more artificial intelligence, more, you know, whatever marketing term we can come up with next, defending against that. And I can give reasons for that as well. And I'll give you an example. And I don't want to keep up too much of your time, but I've got a couple of examples I think hopefully crystallizes this. So the machine learning, artificial intelligence I've seen, I think some of it's good, and I think there is some good products. But actually, what I keep seeing is people, process, and technology. And I'm going to take you back to my physical security example. I can have really good CCTVs, and each year my CCTV gets better. So it's got AI this, it's got machine learning that. But actually, if someone breaks into my house, I still need someone to kick him out. I still need some process in place or some people in place to kick the guy out of my house. But my CCTV is brilliant, it can do facial recognition. And I think in security technology terms, I'm always a big fan, product agnostic, between technology, people, and process coming together, which actually makes a real deal. I don't believe in a silver bullet. I don't believe that you can buy this tech from this vendor and that tech and you're 100% secure. I actually would like to get it out there that getting hacked isn't embarrassing. It shouldn't be, oh, I got hacked and all your customers don't like you anymore. It should be actually, how quick can you recover? And that for me should be the true metrics, not, oh, you got hacked, you're a bad company. It should be, you got hacked and the recoverability. And just one final example I'll give you. And the reason that is, so I've made a big statement there saying the attacks are increasing. I started life as a pen tester 25 years ago, working for the Japanese, working for a company called Fujitsu. We used to hack servers. About 3 years ago, one of my pen testers will remain nameless, and this big organisation also will be nameless. We hacked a kettle, And the next question is well done. We hacked something called the iKettle, and the password. Now we hacked this kettle from outside the network, and this kettle was used to brew green tea at 38 degrees or whatever it was. And he then sent a text message to say the kettle was done. Now, once X person hacked the kettle, they were inside the network. You'll get this. Once they're inside the network, they were able to log onto an Android TV and record a board meeting. Now, you imagine that they're in the LAN, so I may be getting a little bit technical here, and I do apologise, but this kettle that's vulnerable, that the guy's bought because it sends a text message to his phone, and it's a smart kettle. He was able to hack that kettle, which means that he got in the front door, so the front door was open using the kettle. Once he's in the front door, he can then get to the living room, and he recorded a board meeting. And this particular customer, I haven't done it many times in my life, but it was, how did you get in, Chris? This company's pretty big. And I was like, your kettle's crap. And that's the weirdest conversation I've ever. But hopefully the reason I'm taking that example is hopefully it gives you an idea that threat landscape isn't just computers and cloud, and it's bigger than that. It's the IoT revolution that's been. Sorry, Azad, I've talked a lot there, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just saying that what you said there about people, processes, and technology. One of my last piece of work I had to do was with Vodafone in Germany. And we had to put in place people, processes, and technology. And we found that what you said there was exactly what came back was, what is the point of me monitoring something through CCTV if I've got to get a human being to press a button?
Exactly. And it hasn't changed, does it? It's boring. It's boring, isn't it? It's like, I just want to buy a piece of tech that does all this stuff for me, and it says artificial intelligence, it's machine learning. It's got a blue LED. It's going to work. And it just, people don't want to hear that. But yeah, send me a CV, Hazard.
One of the things that we used to do when I was working in one of those companies, I'm going to mention which one.
Yeah.
We used to have a challenge every lunchtime. And the best one we ever did was we managed to hack into RAF Halton and watch Herc's landing.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, and now there's more IoT than ever. So there's more cameras that know. I mean, it's just, baby monitors, and, I bought a baby monitor from China and nothing wrong with China. China's a great country. But I'm just saying that you bought a baby monitor for £6 rather than paying 15 quid. And, it's not just you monitoring your baby, actually, mate, there's half of, X country monitoring that as well. But yeah, I mean, it's increasing every year, and that's a horrible thing to say, really. It's good. My board of investors like that cybersecurity is every year, but it is disappointing for me that, people, process, technology, it's boring, but it's the way. I mean, that's what we do. We just sell services. We don't sell tech. And if you say, I want to buy a firewall, we blunt and say, jog on, we're not the company for you. Yeah. There's plenty of other people that buy firewalls as well. So we're quite blunt.
For what you said, Chris, it's a breath of fresh air, because
thank you.
Most of the time, we just get people selling you tech, and it doesn't work.
And maybe we can start. Maybe we can do it in Birmingham on Tech Wednesday. Maybe we can start a revolution that says, actually, look at the background, look at the amount of attacks. Let's talk people, process, technology. Let's understand that these vendors that. And I know, Vivien, you're a hedge fund, so I don't want to say anything about, but let's stop these VC-backed billion-pound companies saying that this tech can solve this problem when it hasn't for the last 25 years, and the landscape's got bigger. Let's do something about it. So, Stephanie, that's what we're going to do. A revolution, Tech Wednesday in Birmingham. We're going to change the world.
We heard it here first.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you. Great question, Azza.
I'm sure that we could, carry on that conversation for a long time, but I want to give Vivien his opportunity to respond to that, Chris. And we'll, Vivien, if you'd like to share your screen, and we'll hear all about grant funding, please. Thank you, Chris.
So, you should be seeing my screen now. Hello, everyone. So my name is Vivien Badaut. I'm the founder and director of DRIAD. We are based in Leeds. So thanks for having us on Tech Wednesday. So I'll start briefly by introducing the company before going on to speaking about grant funding. So we are innovation enablers. We are supporting technology companies in their innovation projects. And our core expertise is in competitive grant funding for innovation projects. The last 6 years, well, almost 7 now, we have helped about 170 startups and scale-ups raising public funding mostly across Europe. So at this point in time, we should have raised about £62 million with a 75% success rate overall. So I'm going to speak now about innovation grants. So innovation grants, it's a subset of the grant of grant funding, and it's very specific. So I'm not cover every type of grant, just innovation grants. So innovation grants, they are very good for companies that have research and development and innovation projects. Why? Because first, it's non-dilutive funding, which means that you access to money without having to give equity against it or to secure it with assets that you own. The counterpart is that there is a lot of oversight on how you use the money. We'll come back on that. Innovation grants, they cover typically 50 to 70% of the costs of a project that you're submitting. So they won't cover the whole of a project. And that has consequences on how you are using that, because it's always match funded. But what you really want to keep in mind is that if you are an SME, it is a significant amount of funding that you can access for developing research and development projects. So I gave 2 typical examples with Innovate UK. Smart, as a single applicant, you can get up to £300,000. And with EIC Accelerator, which is European funding, it's up to 1.5 million. So that can be very significant, even for a medium-sized company to use that purely in research and development. So what is the downside? Well, the first thing to keep in mind is that this is public funding, it's taxpayers' money. And when they invest public money in a private venture, they expect you to deliver some form of impact. And the impact we are speaking about is jobs, but also social benefits for the taxpayers. The second thing to keep in mind is that they fund projects, not companies. What I mean by that is if you ask for equity funding for example, business angel venture capital, they will fund the whole company. In a grant, it's not the case. They will fund a neatly packaged innovation project to bring something new to the market. And what they fund is mostly labor costs. So it's not a tool that you can leverage easily for capital expenditure. So it funds mostly labor costs, a bit of subcontracting, the equipment that you need or the software that you need to conduct your project, the marketing that you need to promote said project and not the normal activities, and a bit of IP, which is something to keep in mind. And last but not least, and this is why I often am asked to do this kind of presentation and offer our support, is it is very competitive. So I gave here 3 examples. Eureka Eurostars, sorry, which is the highest success rate on the market, is at 20%. So 1 out of 5 applicants win funding. Then you go on to Innovate UK Smart, which at this point in time has a 5% success rate. And then you have Horizon Europe, which is insanely competitive with a top 2% success rate. So how do you know before applying whether you're going to waste your time or not? So this is one of my former employees' antics, but it's very true. The time you can waste on an application if you are not looking at it carefully is humongous. So we'll try to save you some time, and how you do that is by thinking and looking thoroughly into the process and the grant you're looking for, before applying. So how do you know if it's worth the time? So there's really two things to look at. The first one is whether your project you want to fund for is aligned with the grant you're seeking. Each grant will have a different scope, so they will look to fund specific projects, but there's two aspects that are common to all innovation grants. They want to fund ambitious project with a strong component, a strong novelty. So they want to fund something that is new to the UK or to the world, and that you can demonstrate how new it is. So you will compare that to the state of the art. You will compare that to what is on the market already. They are looking for projects that will disrupt the market, so will have a very large impact outside of your company, and that will change how the market operates. And they are looking to finance significant opportunities in most cases. So for Innovate UK Smart, typically I'm saying if your target market is below £100 million, it's not even worth applying. The second aspect is the impact. So they will want you to they will want your project to have a strong impact on your company, so the growth of your company. By injecting a bit of money, they want to see a huge results, and more importantly, they want to see you grow and scale and hire a lot of people, so create jobs in the UK. They want you, as I said, to impact the market, so that the market disruption and the market impact are linked in the sense that they want you to have a positive impact, change how the market operates, change its rule, and make it more efficient in a way. And the last item, which is often not seen clearly by applicants, is taxpayers, society and taxpayers. So they want to see a positive impact on taxpayers. So if your innovation project only impacts what happens in your company and increases your profit, but doesn't deliver much to the general public, then your chances of winning a grant is low. The second item is the financial parameters of the grant you're seeking and of grant funding in general. So the funding size of innovation grants is typically between 50k and £1 million. And if you're looking for less or more than that, it is likely that you will not be able to fund your project with grants. And each grant will have a limited size. So for example, European funding, if it's less than $500,000, you won't be able to apply for it. But Innovate UK, if it's more than $500,000, you won't be able to apply for it. So you have to consider how much you need for your project before actually applying. So be useful. The second thing is keeping in mind that the time to access for the cash with grants is very long. So typically, again, speaking about Innovate UK, it takes 6 to 9 months between the moment you start preparing your application until the moment you will start accessing to the grant money. And if you start your project and you start working on it and you start spending before you get the approval from the grant agency, then you won't be able to access the funds either. Last bit is the cash flow. Grants are mostly refunded in arrears. So you spend the money up front and you claim a portion of your spending back to the funding agency. And obviously, if you're speaking about Innovate UK again, that means that you need to be able to fund not only the match funding bit, so a project that covers 70% of your cost, you need to find the 30% remaining, but also you need to be able to fully fund the first 3 to 4 months of cost of your project, to be able, simply put, to then claim the money back. So it has a strong impact on your cash flow. So to conclude, accessing to grants is often said to be one of the first things you have to do. If you don't have money, go after a grant. Well, from experience, accessing grants is very hard for startups because of what I just said, both in terms of timing, in terms of need of match funding, and in terms of cash flow. So it needs to be part of an overall funding strategy, especially when you keep in mind that if your chance of success is like 20%, well, you have an 80% chance of not winning it. So if it's critical, if it's mission critical, you really want to have a funding strategy in place to be able to do that bit nonetheless. Second element is that you have to think about accessing to a grant early. If you tell me, I need money in 2 months, cannot do anything for you. I need 6 months to 9 months to be able to do to work for you. So that implies that as a consequence, what you're really looking to fund is the dream, the big picture, the long-term plan, the next big thing in your company. So you have to be very ambitious. And the last thing I would recommend is if you don't have anyone in your company that has experience applying for grants or that has an academic background in sort of way, because academics have to apply for grants. So, get help because applying for a grant is a significant process. Again, Innovate UK, it takes us about 100 hours of work, and we are experts to prepare a winning application because it's so competitive. So I hope you found this useful. If you have any question, you can pop me an email directly. I'll add that in the chat as well. And you can, of course, go on our website. We have a newsletter and we do a monthly roundup of competitions available, and there's a free readiness check on it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Awesome, thank you so much. And obviously I encourage everybody to please do sign up to that newsletter because there's so many new grants that are coming out all the time. It's so great to be able to keep on top of them. So thank you ever so much. We do have our first question for you, Vivien. So the question is, what stage does the project need to be before it's ready to apply for funding?
It depends on the grant you're seeking, but generally speaking, it needs to be at a relatively early stage. There's always option to fund a project when it's at the feasibility stage, at the prototype stage, But if you're looking for funding for industrializing a project, so the innovation is already there and you need to build the product to be able to sell it. So if it's really close to the market, then it's too late. And then depending on the grant, they can fund more or less early projects. So European funds tend to focus on the later stage. Once you have proven that the technology and the commercial feasibility of the project, you have a prototype, and you need to refine that. But Innovate UK typically earlier than that, they fund feasibility studies.
Perfect. We've got no more questions coming in, but one from myself, kind of, what advice would you give to anybody who has applied for a grant and been rejected in the past? Obviously, it's quite, demoralizing when you think that you're ready for it and then it gets rejected. What's the best way to go about that again?
Well, it depends which grant you applied for, but if it's with Innovate UK, you have the chance to have access to the reviews from the assessors. You can use that to improve your application quite a bit, and that will improve your chances a lot to rework the application and resubmit it, because you can almost always resubmit application, at least for open competitions that are recurring. If you don't know how to take this further, there's two options really. There's a bit of support that you can get for free from the Knowledge Transfer Network, for example, or the European Enterprise Network, that will be able to advise. But they will be able to advise to tell you whether your project is actually, they think it has a chance or not to be funded. They can do that before you apply, by the way, which is probably the best way to use them. But they won't be able to do any work on it and bring you the knowledge and expertise you're missing there. So obviously preaching for my own church, but I will advise to approach consultants. There's a lot of ways to work with us, and not all of it is expensive.
No, great. I think, many of our companies based with us at Bruntwood SciTech, I think the most common one is the Innovate UK grant that we hear of, that people.
It's the most visible.
But over obviously the last 12 years with the lockdown and all these new grants coming around, it's good to kind of know those places where to go to get that support. So thank you ever so much for that. We are quite behind. I've only got a few more slides. So Vivien, thank you ever so much for that. And thank you everybody for the questions. I'm just going to quickly run through the last couple of bits on our presentation, which are a couple of things coming up. So if you've not yet heard of the Midlands Women in Tech Awards, where have you been? So the first Women in Tech Awards was in 2019. We hosted it in our iCentrum building. It was absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, last year they were unable to carry out the awards, but this year we are going ahead. We're very excited about it, and you can now nominate. So please take a note of the web link at the bottom of the screen there to nominate yourself, to nominate any of your colleagues, female colleagues. These are the categories that you can nominate for. So please do, support your female colleagues and make sure you put them forward. womenintech.awards.co.uk will give you an overview of each of those awards. So if you're not too sure on which one entails, have a look on the website, get those nominations in. I think they're open till around June time, so you've got a bit of time, but please do, I encourage you to do so. Another thing which to bring to your attention, so Digital Leaders Week 2021 is happening the 14th to the 18th of June. This is now in the 5th year of running, so again, their talk submissions are open. So if you would like to present your own event or talk during that week, you can fill out a form on their website, week.digileaders.com. And by the talks that we've had tonight, I really encourage you two both to do that, because obviously these talks will be promoted and marketed to hundreds and hundreds of people across the UK. And that's obviously definitely something that we want to talk about and shout about. So please do get those submissions into Digital Leaders. Next month, Tech Wednesday is having a takeover. So I will be joined by the lovely Naomi, who is the entrepreneur engagement manager for the Midlands. So myself and Naomi will be hosting next month's Tech Wednesday. Tech Wednesday, Tech Nation is such a mouthful. But yes, please do make a note of that in your calendar. Naomi's going to be bringing a couple of startups with her from the Tech Nation programme that we'll be listening to. So you can sign up for that already on the meetup page. Please do that right after this. And the last thing, as always, whilst we're virtual, the Bruntwood SciTech events are open to anybody. So make a note of the website there, bruntwoodscitech.eventbritestudio.com. You can access any of our business support that we've got going on whilst we're still virtual. Over the next couple of weeks, sorry, we've got a LinkedIn workshop, intellectual property workshop, EIS, SEIS funding workshops, and next week we've even got a line of duty chat. So ahead of the end of the series, we're going to be talking about all the theories and that's going on during line of duty. So business support and a few social fun things as well going on. Please do check that out. That brings us to a close for this evening. I'm just going to double check the chat box because I've seen a couple of things coming in whilst I'm speaking. I know there's been a lot of praise for you both. Anna was ready for the cyber revolution, which was absolutely brilliant. We're ready to go. We've got another recruit. And yes, I think a final thank you to you both, a round of applause, because these are a little bit daunting when you're presenting to a screen. And yeah, anybody who would like to present at a future Tech Wednesday or get in touch, then my email is on the screen there, stephanie.einan@bruntwood.co.uk. And everybody can enjoy their tea for the rest of the evening. Thank you ever so much, guys. We'll see you next month with myself and Naomi, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.